about why I would choose to do arbitrage over owning. If something changes about the regulations, you're stuck. You're stuck. So that's another reason why I prefer arbitrage over ownership. All in. If you had to long-term rent, if you had the long-term rent the other side, you could rent it for $1,700, $1,800 a month.
What's going on? In addition to that, market that you got. What's going on, everybody?
Welcome to the channel. I'm sitting out here at the lake with my new mic on. Y'all let me know in the comments, man, how the new mic sound, man. I spent a grip on it, man. I didn't want to be that guy, but you know, crazy thing is, man, last time I was on this park and I was leaving, I was walking by, the guy saw me with the camera and he saw I had the DJI camera. And so he was like, do you got the DJI bike? And I was like, man, that thing's like $400. He was like, man, it's worth it. I'm like, man, I'm not spending no money on no camera. I mean, on no mic. And guess what? I done went and bought the mic. I did buy it refurbished from Best Buy though. I got a little bit of a discount. I think the regular price is like $350. I think I got it for like $290. Excellent refurbished condition. So any creators out there that's, you know, looking to get their equipment and stuff, man, check out Best Buy for their refurbished stuff, especially if it's in, you know, excellent or good condition. You can get $50, $60 off, and it's pretty much, I mean, brand new. Come with the warranty and everything. But today I want to talk a little bit about why I prefer to do rental arbitrage over owning when it comes to short-term rentals. And there's a few different reasons why, but I'm just going to go over some of the reasons why I prefer it. Now, again, in the comments, I mean, if you think the opposite of it, that's fine. Hey, go ahead, drop in the comments. I do believe that, you know, owning property is the way to pursue long-term wealth, and that should always be a part of your strategy, right? So, but I'm talking specifically about why I would choose to do arbitrage over owning. Unless it's one specific situation, and if you stay to the end of the video, I'll tell you about that. So the reason why, well, some of the reasons why I rather arbitrage over owning is generally when you do arbitrage, the majority of your costs are fixed, right? So you could pretty much plan, you know, your expenses, how much your expenses are going to be every month, right? You know what your rent's going to be every month. You know what your supplies are going to be. After you've done been in the business for a while, you kind of start understanding what your costs are going to be. Now, I'm not saying that your costs going to be 100% fixed every time. Of course, sometimes you might end up using more toilet paper or, you know, whatever. But for the most part, you can kind of estimate how much you're going to spend on a property with arbitrage, right? Your landlord, like, and if you have an issue with the house, guess what? Guess who pays for it? The landlord, right? So if there's a situation where the plumbing is backed up, the landlord has to pay for that. That doesn't come out of your pocket. Now, it could cost you some downtime, but if you own it, it costs you downtime as well. The difference with arbitrage is you don't have to pay to get it fixed. And that's a huge benefit to have, right? Another thing is, especially if you do arbitrage, the real secret to arbitrage is to do arbitrage in apartment complexes. That 100% is the number one way to do arbitrage, right? You're not cutting no grass. You're not worried about yard work. You're not worried about any of those things. You're basically worried about just running your business, right? Find you a good apartment complex manager that allows arbitrage, and then just go ahead and do your thing over there. But again, if you're in an apartment complex, you don't have to worry about upkeep in the yard. You don't have to worry about upkeep in the property, which if you own a property, you have to take care of all those things. You have to make sure the grass is cut. You have to make sure, you know, pest control. Like, all of those are things that are coming out of your pocket. In the apartment complex that I rent, that I do arbitrage with, like, the guy, he takes care of, he changes the air filters. He does the pest control. He keeps the lawn cut. Like, everything is taken care of, right? And then guess what else? My guests get the advantage of all the amenities in the neighborhood. They got a little dog park in there. They got access to that. Now that's an amenity that I add that a lot of folks like. He has a little bench, a little park bench in the back. They can take advantage of that. And guess what? I don't have to clean up. I don't have to clean the park. I don't have to clean the dog park. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to make sure the little baggies that people use to pick up dog poop is in the dog park thing. I don't have to do that. Guess what? I just tell my folks, I give them the directions, I give them the code to the gate and the code to the door, and they're in. And because of that, like, arbitrage it's just simpler to me. Like, if you're new to this business and you want to figure out how to make money in this business, it just makes more sense to get in doing arbitrage than owning a property, because owning a property comes with a lot of different headaches. The other thing is the ability to be able to pivot. And the reason why I say that is when you own a property, you own that property, right? And so if you did your evaluation on that property and your evaluation told you that you could make some money doing arbitrage, right? But you didn't pay attention to how much you could rent that property long term. You didn't pay attention to how much you could rent that property midterm. And something changes about the regulations, you're stuck. You're stuck. Guess what? You own that property. And it could be rolling good on money, and then all of a sudden the HOA flips out. The HOA basically says that they don't want you to do Airbnb in there anymore, in that area anymore. Or the city passes some type of ordinance and you can't do Airbnb over there anymore. And guess what? You still own that property. And then when you try to pivot, you didn't pay attention to the midterm or the long-term numbers. So when you try to pivot to that, it ain't profitable no more. And guess what? You're stuck. And the house is just a house in the neighborhood. The house has no commercial value. Now you got to try to sell the house at maybe a loss or not, right? The house isn't going to have any value. People know that they can't Airbnb it over there anymore. They know it's just going to be simply a simple family. So you end up trying to sell in a fire sale, and could be in a situation where you end up losing money. That's another reason why, man. The ability to pivot is tough. And there's a lot of folks out here, especially in Florida right now. I mean, these people they're falling apart right now because, the insurance is crushing them. In Florida, it's always something, right? The HOA could crush you. The city can pass a law or ordinance that could crush you. The HOA can crush you. Insurance, like taxes, can crush you. There's your ability to pivot because you own that property. You just can't be as agile. When I have my my arbitrage leases with my landlords, I put it specifically in the lease that if anything changes as far as city regulations, if anything changes because for some reason, I don't care what it is, that I can't do short-term rental or I deem as not profitable, yes, that is in my contract, I can leave. I can leave. So guess what? I can bounce. I can bounce. I'm not in a situation where I'm stuck with this property where the numbers just don't work anymore. And you're trying to figure out how to offload a property where everybody knows it's a fire sale, right? Everybody understands. You're going to be in a situation where everybody else in that area, especially in Florida, everybody knows that you're selling this property because it's a loser. You think you're going to be getting the best offer for a house like that, for a property like that? Nah, people going to be lowballing you. You might end up losing money on the property. So that's another reason why I prefer arbitrage over ownership. Now, again, drop in the comments if you feel differently. Now, I'm not telling folks that ownership isn't the best way down the line, right? 100%. Like, if you're in this arbitrage business, your goal should be to eventually own properties. Your goal should definitely be to own properties, right? But if you're in a situation where you don't have the right amount of money to put down on a property that makes it make sense to actually, have this, then it doesn't make sense. Because in this high interest rate environment right now, man, you're not going to be able to get an interest rate that's going to be low enough to where you can cash flow a long-term rental. It's going to be nearly impossible. It's going to be nearly impossible. If you're paying 7% on a $250,000 house, man, a $250,000 house, you're not going to be able to rent it for much more than $1,500 a month. Your mortgage payment is going to be that, right? There's not going to be any money to be made. So the only way you're going to be able to get a $250,000 house to a point where you can cash flow it long term is you got to put down a big down payment. Where are you going to get that money from? If you do arbitrage and you stack your chips, then you can do that. Not saying that's what I would do, right? Because investor, the best strategy is to get control of assets, you know, with putting up the least amount of capital. That's what good investors try to do, right? They don't try to dump all their money in one property, right? I want to get as much property as I can with as little money possible. That should be your strategy. So those are the two reasons why that I believe that arbitrage is better in this current environment, right? Than owning. Now, as things change with the economy and interest rates come back down, then that definitely could change. And again, like I said, I get the long game argument. Like, y'all could drop that in the comments, man. We could debate that in the comments all day. Matter of fact, I'm not even debating it with you. I get it. For the long game, ownership is better. Now, as promised, I told you there is one way that I would actually buy, and that is the duplex play. You guys, if you guys have been watching my videos, you already know what I was gonna say. The duplex play. That is the only play that I would take right now over arbitrage, is the duplex play. Now, of course, again, if you find a ridiculous deal, right, I get it. I'm just talking about if all things are equal. The duplex play is the only way that I would take a higher interest rate and buy a property and run the play, right? Because I would live in one side of the duplex, right? And, you know, just say if my mortgage payment is $3,000 and I get a 3-bedroom plus duplex, right? Because you got to get a 3-bedroom plus. You got to get a 3-bedroom plus because 2 bedrooms, you know, you don't really separate yourself. I talk about all that when I talk about my short-term rental strategy, right? 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms is pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same revenue. That the difference in those two is pretty much the same. You really don't change your revenue until you get into a 3-bedroom, right? And that separates yourself. There's way less 3 bedrooms in the market, depending on the market. But for most of the markets that I invest in, there's less 3 bedrooms in the market than 2 bedrooms, right? So you can sleep a lot more people, and you know that's when the math starts being in your favor versus hotel rooms. I believe is once you get to a 3-bedroom, it makes more sense to get a small apartment or a duplex or a house or whatever you renting versus staying in a hotel room, getting multiple hotel rooms. The math starts working in your favor. So that's the position you want to be in. But if you do the duplex play, let's just look at some simple math. Let's just say you got a mortgage of $3,000 a month because you bought a duplex. I don't know what the math is, but let's just say your duplex costs about $400,000, and so you ended up with a $3,000 a month mortgage, all in. If you had to long-term rent, the other side, you could rent it for $1,700, $1,800 a month, no problem. And guess what? They're paying 60 to 70% of your mortgage payment. You're paying $1,200, $1,300 a month to live in a 3-bedroom duplex, right? So you're still winning, right? You're not gonna lose in that scenario. If something happens in the city where they change the ordinance and you can't do short-term rentals anymore, you can still long-term rent that one side at $1,600, $1,700, $1,800 plus, depending on the, you know, your finishings, maybe up to $2,000, and still win, because now you're only paying about $1,000 to $1,300 a month for your side. That's a win. That's a win, because normally you would spend more than $1,000 a month to live somewhere, you know, for the most part. So again, and then the other thing is the benefits that you're gonna get, the tax benefits, the short-term loophole that you're gonna get. So if you have a W-2 job, and that's a whole nother video, but if you have a W-2 job and then you're running that play, now you can offset the losses from your duplex from that business against your W-2 income. So you're winning in that sense too. So on paper, you may be putting out $1,000 to $1,300 a month, but by the time you save on your W-2 income, because of the tax benefits, it's way less than that, right? So it's a huge win. So tell me what you guys think about arbitrage versus ownership. Which path do you think is better? And drop all your reasons why. But either way, get out here, do something, start running one of these plays, and start charting your path to financial freedom. Again, please like, subscribe, drop some comments in there, let YouTube know that I'm doing my thing. Anyways, keep running those plays. Peace.